I just want to stop here and say that in this video I will be discussing child and sexual abuse involving a child. So if you find those topics particularly sensitive, do not watch this video. Hey guys, I thought I would start my Chatty Kathy series off by discussing what it's been like for me to live by myself the past year. So I'm going to split this into two parts. The first half will be end of September, early October 2019 to March 2020, and then March 2020 until the current date, which is October 2020. So the first 6 months, obviously, my life was pretty normal, and then from March onwards, the other half of the year, we are dealing with the pandemic. Okay, so when I moved out, I was not as financially stable as I would have liked to. When I move out, I know that rent, according to the financial rules, rent should only be 30% of your net pay. It's really hard to do that in New York. I think most people are probably looking at half their net pay. I looked really hard to find an apartment that would be less than half of my net pay. So the reason I moved out without feeling like I was completely financially secure is, the short answer is, my parents and I don't get along. So to give you some background on that, it's not just when I was in elementary school, I met my stalker, and they knew that he was sexually harassing me and abusing me, and they allowed it to happen because they're from a culture where sexual assault is the woman's fault, the female, because in that case I was a child. My parents were legally responsible for me, and this is not a "oh, I hate my mommy and daddy" video, because the adults at my school also knew that I was being sexually harassed and abused by this boy and his group of friends, and they allowed it to happen. So I've been working full-time since I was very young, and as I got older, now that my peers are the acceptable age to have a child, in my opinion anyway, and even though some of my coworkers were a bit older than me, I could tell how much they loved their child and the lengths they would go to protect them. There was a coworker who knew that her child was being bullied, and she would call the principal from time to time to make sure that nobody's giving her child a problem, and she let it be known that if her child was being given a hard time, it would be a problem for everybody involved. And just having to be around that made me angry, because it's not that it's not that I don't think other people deserve loving parents, but just made me feel like, why couldn't I have that? Why couldn't my parents love me? Why couldn't they protect me? It just really hurts to see other people calling their children their baby, and to know my parents didn't feel that way about me, that they didn't think that I deserved to be protected. Oh, we're not going to do that. So basically, my parents are just not financially literate, and they were unwilling to learn. The other thing is that I don't understand how my father can come home after a full workday. So we work in the same industry but in different departments. So I obviously, because it's a different department, I don't know what his workload is like, but I don't understand how my father can come home after a full workday and go and fight with me. I don't know. I am exhausted at the end of my workday. I'm so tired. When I go home, I feel like home should be your sanctuary, which home didn't feel like a sanctuary for me, number one. And I just coming home and knowing that somebody is gonna fight with me, or that somebody is gonna fight with someone, was just really taxing on my mental health. My brother keeps really odd Sorry to put you up last, but yeah, he keeps really odd out. It's like typical dumb young guy stuff. He's up till 4 a.m. It doesn't really bother me because he's quiet, but my mother would go and yell at him and wake up the whole household because he was awake, and they would even wake me up to tell him to go to sleep. At one point, I was the only person working, bringing money to make sure that we weren't homeless, and then they would be mad because I would be mad that they were being noisy. So, as you can tell, just peace and quiet are very important to me, and I can't be in a household where somebody is constantly fighting, yelling, screaming, crying. When it came to apartment hunting, I had a few. Everybody is different, so the first thing, obviously, the rent. I searched very hard to find a place that would be under 50% of my take-home pay. The second thing is the location of the apartment. Now, this may come off surprising to some people because since I'm a millennial, to me, it wasn't really that important to live in the city or downtown or near those areas, probably because I grew up in South Brooklyn my whole entire life. I was fine commuting to the city for work. I had done it for years to get to work. It was not an issue for me. I didn't see it as a big deal. So I stayed in the same area that I grew up in pretty much, but I moved closer to the train. So I no longer had to take a bus to commute to work, which was really good because if you miss the bus by like 5 minutes, you're half an hour late to work because at that point, everybody's dropping their kids off at school. There's more traffic. Like the trucks are lining up on the streets to start unloading stuff for the stores as they open. So for me, if I'm 5 minutes late when I get out of the door, I'm just 5 minutes late for work. At least in terms of like getting to the station. Obviously, you can get stuck on the train and all that. So on top of that, I'm used to commuting to work, like I said already. So for me, I would say my average commute is anywhere, I'd say like 35 to 40 minutes is like my average commute time from the minute I leave my house to the train and taking the train into the city. So obviously there are bad days where it can take up to an hour, and I've had times where like the train came, everything was like really fast. Like I got on the train, like the train came when I was there, got on it, nobody held the doors open, no delays, nothing, and I got to work like in half an hour. It was great. For me, what was important for a location is going to be different for what other people feel is necessary for a good location. And I knew because of what I was paying that I would have to make some sacrifices. Luckily not on the location. I think this location is better than where I was living before. Because it is a smaller apartment, the next cheapest apartment that I looked at, the second, was $400 more than this one. It was like a little bigger. So the bedroom is smaller, but I think like there was a bigger living space, and the bathroom was bigger because it had a bathtub. But it was also further away from the train. I would have had to take a bus, and I just didn't want to take a bus. I just want to leave my apartment and just walk to the train and take the train to work. In this apartment, it's not really, you guys have seen what my apartment looks like. Maybe not the fully furnished, but I know like I have film stuff in here and in my kitchen, and there is an empty apartment tour I did when I initially moved in where I take you guys through that whole thing. So I'll link that down below so I guess you guys have a reference of what the place vaguely is like. So for me, living by myself, I love living by myself, okay? I can eat whatever I want. I don't have to worry that the smell is gonna bother someone. And you want to do your dishes by the end of the night because it's just disgusting if you don't. But I don't have to worry that like somebody's gonna come home from work and they're gonna want to make something. So I can make my food, eat at my leisure, then go do the dishes and whatever I have to do for the night. I know the messes in the bathroom are mine. If my boyfriend wants to fight with me, all I have to do is hit him with my household, my rules, and he has to agree with whatever I say. Cons of living alone. You need to kill your own bugs. I had somehow managed to have gotten this far in life without killing a bug by myself or having to get rid of one. Yes, I would trap. I was one of those people. I would trap bugs under things, tape it really good, wait for somebody to get home and be like, it's your problem, but bug, I guess this is like point 1B. My neighbors are disgusting. I'm trying to think of how to say it nicely, but you can't. It's not possible. They're gross. It took me forever to get rid of the bugs that they were attracting. Thankfully, it's like, now that I figured out how to get rid of them, it's like, well, not like a little barrier, because when I go outside, I still see bugs wandering around outside, but they're not in here. Worked super hard to get rid of them. This would be any apartment that you're probably gonna move into, to use bug bombs and try to get rid of them before, and look for any cracks before you move into the place, because then you're moving the furniture to try to seal them off, and it's not fun. Okay, not fun. Yeah, living alone, I loved it. I love living alone. Why am I saying passive? Yeah, I love living alone because nobody bothers you. And I mean, obviously, living in New York, you're very close to your neighbors, so you still want to be respectful of the noises that you're making at night, but you know, most people know to be reasonable, I guess. So now let's talk about March 2020 onwards with the pandemic. So the reason living alone for me was great, I think, because, you know, on the weekend I had my socialization with my friends, but for me, when I come home, home is where you rest, okay? I don't want to see other people when I'm home. I'm sorry. I love my friends. I love Matt. He knows this. When I'm home, I can't deal with other people. I love going out to hang out with people. I love going out to see my friends. I didn't mind going out to work, in the office. You know, like, I had some coworkers that I got along pretty well with. Something I didn't realize until I actually started being cooped up in the house all the time was, even though we tend to think of office workers as having a more sedentary lifestyle, it kept me more active than I realized, because I was walking to the train, I was walking to the office. Once you get to the office, you are walking around to different departments to talk to them and ask them where they are on certain projects. If I had a meeting with a client, I was going out to get them coffee or get them lunch. I was walking with them around the showroom, and setting up the showroom entailed like cleaning it. And for me, because I'm so small, I had to like climb on top of ladders. I don't know if I should say this publicly, because I don't think I was supposed to. Pretty sure I was supposed to ask the showroom system, but when they're not around, you do what you gotta do. And dragging samples, making the box to package up samples, trying to lift 20-pound box when you're my size is not easy. I still think lifting weights is a scam. That's not the point of this video. It's just that I was even though I wasn't moving a crazy amount, it was keeping me relatively active in the grand scheme of things. I think anybody that's living alone, you know, like, once the pandemic and you were quarantined by yourself, how difficult it was. But for me, I think the extra level of being estranged from my parents, having all this time alone on my hands, made me start thinking I was letting the same thoughts that I had at my parents' house, I wasn't good enough, or too much of something creep back into my head. And that's like one of the things right now that are really bad for me. I would think that most people have the support of their parents, and I didn't have that, and it made it really hard for me to lose my job. It made it really difficult for me, because if something were to happen, I don't have a support system, basically. I know some people are like, oh, but you have your boyfriend and he helps you, but it's not the same. I don't want to say everything is black and white, because obviously you shouldn't give your family unconditional love if they are not deserving of it. Case in point, my parents. I thought that as long as I was like doing my job at work and doing a good job at work, which I was, that I would be financially secure and I would have my job, and, you know, that I wouldn't need anyone else or, you know, even if I lost my job, knock on, well, not really knock on because it happened, but the point was, if it was unrelated to pandemic, I have a lot of experience in my industry. I could have went and gotten another job. I didn't. I mean, obviously nobody can see what like the economy is going to would have been like, and it just makes it so hard to not know where your job is, where your finances are going. If I can't find a new job in time, I don't have a home to, I'll be homeless. That's it. I'm not the only person in the world who's struggling with the pandemic and looking for a job or has familial problems, but it's really hard when you don't have a support system. Obviously, like, loss of control for me was very hard to cope with. Probably stems from having a stalker at a young age and not being able to do anything about it. Probably like accounts for like a lot of the problems that I have that made it like really, really difficult for me during this time. That is it for our inaugural Chatty Kathy series. You guys got to find out what it was like for me a little bit, finding the process of finding this apartment, living by myself, and dealing with the pandemic alone. If you are in the same boat as me and struggling with job loss or estrangement from your parents, feel free to send me a message. I have my social media linked below. And just take care of yourself, guys.